Hey everybody, it's Steamboat. Welcome to the latest edition of Gearbox Review. Just got done setting up my camera and some gray clouds rolled in. Kind of hoping it doesn't rain, or maybe I do, because today we're talking about the umbrella. This is the Liteflex, or the Chrome hiking umbrella. That's the brand of this umbrella. A lot of companies will sell this umbrella and they'll brand it. This particular one's from Gossamer Gear, but you can find it at a lot of different places. So maybe you've run into, hiking umbrellas, you've been doing some research, you've seen it on different blogs, maybe on different hiking forums, and you're kind of wondering, what's up with this thing? Is this, really something that I want to incorporate into my kit, or, is it something that's really useful? So in this video, I'm just going to talk about the reasons why I like it, some of its best uses. I'm also going to talk about, some downsides about carrying an umbrella, and then I'll wrap up the video with just some final thoughts about whether or not this would be a good piece of gear to incorporate into your kit. So stick around. Hey, so welcome back. So before I get into it, I'm just going to go over some of the tech specs. So with this umbrella, it weighs somewhere between 7.3 and 8 ounces. I think that if you decide to cut this little toggle out, then it brings the umbrella to the 7.3 ounces. It does have a carbon fiber structure, which is why it's able to be as light as it is. In total, the height of the umbrella is 25.2 inches, and the total coverage, as far as the diameter of the umbrella, so the total coverage this way, and that's all just drawn from the tech specs that I got off of Gossamer Gear's website. So of course, with a piece of high-end backpacking gear, they figured out how to make it as light as possible. But really, what's the benefit of this thing? Why do people carry umbrellas? I think the biggest selling point, is just it is a chrome umbrella. It does have this protective coating. It's primarily for the sun, is what I think it is so that hikers will, are mostly interested in purchasing an umbrella, I think, for the sun protection. And so it makes a lot of sense, and so it's just basically what this is, right? It's just a little piece of mobile shade. And so the reason why that's so helpful when you're doing any type of desert hiking or any hiking where it's really exposed and you're in the sunlight a lot, is that it's just when you're in the shade as compared to the direct sunlight, I mean, you can actually create a small environment for yourself, a little microclimate, underneath this little mobile shade. And it can actually be up to 15 degrees cooler. If you're planning on doing something like the PCT, if you're planning on tackling the CDT, if you're hiking sections in Arizona, you're going to be in areas that don't have this natural shade protection. And just being able to carry this with you, just so you have that relief to get out of the direct sunlight, can actually be really beneficial. And I know this, it's I grew up in Arizona, it's I don't hate the sun, but I do have a really healthy respect for it. And it's just just knowing that just the damages that the exposure to the sun can cause to you, the potential of heat-related illnesses that you can develop because of direct sunlight. I mean, this thing can actually be a really critical piece of gear, if you're hiking in these types of environments. So I don't consider this to be a piece of luxury gear. I think it's just an optional piece of gear. In my personal opinion, I don't actually believe there is such a thing as luxury gear. I don't really understand what that means. When I think of luxury gear, it's just the nicest thing that comes to mind is if I can find a pair of shorts in the town clothes box at the hostel that actually fits me. That's a luxury. This thing is just optional, just depending on the type of environments that you're going to tackle. So primarily, I think hikers are going to be drawn towards using a hiking umbrella, particularly this type, right? So one of these chrome umbrellas for the sun protection that it has to offer, and just being able to carry that mobile shade with you as you're hiking in those areas that are exposed to direct sunlight. And so, I mean, then you're probably thinking, yeah, Steamboat, I get you, it's just it's a silver shiny umbrella, it's going to be good for the sunlight, but I'm not planning on doing any, desert hiking or anything like that, so, wouldn't an umbrella be kind of silly? Of course, it's just what I found is I took this piece of gear with me on my Colorado Trail thru hike, and the reason why I did that was for the sun protection. I thought that, it's just if I was climbing over a pass or if I was going to be above tree line, and then I also heard that there were some just sections that are more exposed to the sun, and I thought that this was going to be really helpful just for that, just for the sun protection. But actually what I found out is that I use this much more for, I guess, what its original intended function is as an umbrella, right? It's just rain protection. So it's an umbrella. It's a rain protection. So it's just it does work just as well for what it's traditionally designed to do. And so now this brings our conversation back to this question of luxury items, right? Is this a luxury item? Is this an optional item? What is really the use of this sort of thing? And I don't know, it's just if anything else, I've really just been drawn to carrying an umbrella because I think it really just kind of flies in the face of this silly ultralight sort of mentality, right? This type of just suck it up sort of thing. I've heard from a lot of people okay, well, if you've just got rain gear, then you don't need an umbrella, just let it rain on you. Well, that's not comfortable, you know? And so it's just like I said, I use this primarily for the rain in Colorado. So it's just like, it's still at altitude. It's just like when it starts raining in the afternoon, as it did like every single day, then it's just like when the rain's coming directly out of the cloud, when you're up at altitude, like it doesn't come out of the cloud as like rain. It came out of the cloud as like ice. And so just like having this, like not only for like the freezing rain and like the ice that was coming out of the sky, just like having this so it wasn't just like just hitting me, you know, just like impacting me and just like driving me slowly insane. And it's just like in one of those situations, it's just like, yeah, could I have just sucked it up? It's just like, sure, you know, but why would I need to, right? I have my umbrella, like this provides protection. I have extra like weather protection. This is what it's for. And it just makes the experience more comfortable. Like why, I'm not, when I go out there to hike, I'm not just like going out there to suffer. Like I want to have a good time. I like want to see beautiful things. I want to be inspired. I want to come back and have like a great story. And it's just like, that doesn't happen. It's not a natural result of me just going out there and sucking it up. Right? And so that's just like one thing that I think, you know, it's just like adding these additional pieces of gear to your kit just to enhance your experience, just to like make it better for you. A couple of other things that you can like use for this. So it's great for the sun. It's great traditionally for what, you know, an umbrella is designed for, right? For precipitation. But then like also with that precipitation, talking about, you know, finding refuge under hailstorms. It's like also really nice, like when it's actively raining and like you want to take a break, you know? So it's like, I'm not just like walking in the rain. I can stop for a second and I can like, you know, just like hang out under my shade. You know, even in Colorado, it's just like if you're in an aspen grove, you're not going to find anything dry. The rain just comes right off of those broadleaf trees and it doesn't provide a lot of like natural protection. So even if you're like in a covered forest, like you can still get wet. And just having, you know, just like being able to get that precipitation off of your body, especially if it's really, really cold, right? So it's just like with that cold water that's going to be like maybe like saturated into your jacket after it wets out, because that's just what happens to rain gear, right? It's always going to wet out eventually. But it begins to act as kind of a refrigerant. As that water is evaporating out of that fabric, it's starting to cool, you know, starting to just like give a little bit of temperature drop like onto your body. And so just like having that extra barrier, that extra layer, I guess, like between like you and that really cold precipitation can be really useful. And that's what I find to be really, really beneficial with this. And then like, you know, when you're stopping, you know, you can just be able to like sort of, you know, just like pitch this like right over the top of your little backpack, you know, and just create a little shade as like maybe you're going through there. Maybe there's something in the bottom of your pack that, you know, it's just like you thought was at the top, but it isn't, because that always happens. And so for just a couple of other uses, you know, if you're a tarp camper, you can always like use this as kind of a mobile door. So if you have an opening inside of your shelter, either if like with the rain that's coming in, or maybe there's some wind, you'd be able to just kind of like, you know, just kind of extend this and just kind of wedge this into like the opening that you have maybe in your tarp. Another thing that I've seen, I've never seen this in person, I've only seen this online, but I've seen that people have taken their umbrellas and they've actually like gotten a long piece of no-see-um, like the bug net, and they'll kind of sew a cocoon, and then they'll be able to drape it over the top, and then they'll be able to like get inside of like their one person like sort of like bug bivvy, and maybe like have a break or have a snack, which could be really useful if you're like me, who thinks that like bugs are just like absolutely intolerable, and you're in an area that's really, really buggy. That could also be something that's like really useful for this. It can kind of like be good for the wind, but not so much. But regarding the wind, you know, it's just like what's actually really, really surprised me about this umbrella is that it's like it hasn't been destroyed. I originally bought this before my 2016 long hike on the PCT, and I was convinced that this thing was going to last like a week, because like, you know how umbrellas are, it's just like they're great when you're in the prevailing wind, but as soon as they catch the wind, right, then it just kind of like blows up and then like turns inside out. But with these, with like the structure and the carbon structure of the ribs inside of the umbrella itself, like it's actually incredibly, incredibly strong. I've been on like some really, really windy passes, you know, in the sun, and I've come over the pass and just like immediately had to stash this thing, and it's like never turned inside out. Like none of the ribs have cracked or broken, anything else like that. I'm actually like really, really impressed with the way that this thing is held up. It's a lot of fun. I think it just like provides the like that additional protection and just some of that peace of mind, like in some of these more like extreme like weather conditions, just to be able to, I guess, like take off some of that other stress that you might be thinking of, right? It's just one less thing that you need to think about. It's just like, okay, my feet are blistered and I'm hungry and I'm chafing and all these sorts of things, and the sun's like cooking me from the inside, but it's just like, at least I got my little thing and I'm like kind of happy. and I've got my little shade, and I've like got my little bubble of happiness. So when it comes to those sort of optional things, so if you're not hiking in the sun, and if you're not hiking in a place like Colorado or like where it's really, really cold rain, then it's just like what I'd kind of say is that it's not a substitute for your rain gear. Okay, so when I was in Colorado, I still had my like Gore-Tex jacket, I still had my pants, I even had my rain mitts because I don't like cold hands. I don't like the cold. And so rain gear is always going to have like a lot of other functions, and so I think it's just really important that you always bring that with you. So this is just going to be in addition to, right? You can just think about it as kind of like your optional rain kit, you know? So it's just like, am I going to somewhere that's going to be sunny and exposed? No. Okay, is it going to be somewhere that it's going to be like really, really cold rain? Well, maybe not, you know? And so what immediately comes to mind is like the 21 days of rain that I saw in Virginia, right, when I was on the AT. And that was like in the late spring, and it, you know, it was steamy, you know what I mean? So it's just like, this thing's not going to like cut through the humidity, that hot humidity that you're going to get when you're like out on the green tunnels and these sorts of things. So it's just like really, you know, it's just like if you're in a hot, dry environment, this is going to be good. If you're in a hot, wet environment, then it's just like, I don't know, that's going to be kind of up to you. But if you're in a wet, cold environment, then I certainly would, you know, especially if you're going to be expecting that rain, I would recommend that you at least consider, you know, looking into something like this. Some of the downsides that you might encounter while carrying an umbrella. So number one is going to be the weight penalty, right? So if you're like really into gram counting and you're just like of the real like silly ultralight suck it up mentality, then like maybe you can forego an umbrella for the time being. And that's going to tie into another disadvantage, is that it's always going to start a conversation. It's like if you're carrying an umbrella, someone's always going to ask about it, you know? It's just like, does that thing actually work? Isn't that kind of silly? Like, do I actually need rain gear? And so it's just like there's always going to be a conversation about it. It does spark a lot of interest because it's unusual, it's kind of quirky. You know, it's just like when you see people out there using different pieces of gear, or maybe in different ways, you know, it's going to spark some interest, you know? And I think it's a great conversation starter. So if you don't like having conversations about, you know, just random pieces of gear that you're using, then, you know, maybe don't carry an umbrella because it's going to attract some attention. And I think the last downside about using an umbrella is it can be really hard to sort of hold and to kind of navigate. And so it's just like, maybe you've seen like, you know, pictures online or like maybe pictures of videos and things, but like somehow like people are able to attach this like to their strap, and like they can, like they're using both their hands and this thing's just like doing its thing. I've never ever been able to make that work for myself, like ever. And like even like the one time I was able to like get it under my clip and like kind of just like wedged in here just right, I like just made a slight turn in the trail and then the wind shifted and then like it didn't matter. And so that's like the one downside, is sometimes the wind's going to be coming in from a different direction than the sunlight, and it can make things kind of tricky. I like to use trekking poles, so it's just like when I'm hiking uphill, usually I'll have to ditch one pole and then just like use one pole and then carry this in the other. And I feel like I lose some of my energy and some of my momentum, and so I have to kind of just like make an assessment like for myself, like, okay, do I want to be rained on, or do I like want to go up this hill faster? And so it's just like, it's always kind of a balance when it comes to that. And so it's just like, yeah, thinking about just one more thing that you need to kind of carry in your hand, one more piece of gear that you have in your pack, just kind of depending on your hiking style and what you're willing to accept, you know, like maybe this may not be the best thing to kind of incorporate into your kit. But you know, if you're going to be out there like in the desert, you're thinking about going and through hiking the PCT, if you're going to go out to the Arizona Trail, you know, some of the sections in the CDT, anywhere else that maybe it's really, you know, like I said, sunny and dry, hot, yeah, but not humid. You know, it doesn't cut through the humidity. So that's the one thing it doesn't kind of relieve. And last thing, like when it comes to purchasing this, like I said, you know, this particular one I got from Gossamer Gear, but a lot of different outdoor companies will brand these. And there's different styles too. So this is kind of like an older style. I think there's a newer style that's like maybe half the size, that's able to fold down. It's probably going to be more expensive because there's more like, you know, moving mechanical components and these sorts of things. But, you know, for $40, this thing's lasted me for 4 years. I don't always take it out with me, but, you know, if I'm expecting any sort of rain, if there's a chance that I'm going to need to get out of the sun, this thing's like definitely always coming with me. Yeah, so hopefully you're able to get some insight into, you know, what this hiking umbrella thing is like all about. Maybe get some information about, you know, helping your decision about whether or not you want to incorporate this into your kit. And, you know, if not, enjoy the hiking out there. Stay adrift. Much love.